What are the most insane unsolved missing cases you know?
Every missing 411 case.
Jason Jokowski. Not a well-known case, but easily one of the weirdest, and it lacks any hallmarks that most missing person cases have. Victim had no history of running away. Did not have any known enemies or connections to shady people. No history of mental illness. No problems at home. Did not use drugs. On the day he vanished, he was planning to walk 4 miles to work as his car was in the shop. But at the last minute arranged for a coworker to pick him up a few blocks from his home. Because this was a last-minute arrangement that deviated from his usual routine, it's clear that he wasn't abducted in a planned scenario. His neighbor saw him taking out the trash shortly before he left for work, and the coworker who was supposed to meet him called his home looking for him 30 minutes later, meaning whatever happened to him happened during a 30-minute window while he walked to the meeting place, which occurred in the middle of the day in a low-crime suburban neighborhood. The neighborhood was canvassed by police and no one saw or heard anything unusual. In the 20-plus years since he disappeared, there have been no reported sightings of him and no leads on what happened to him.
Not exactly a missing person case since he was found and died, but still an interesting, weird and never fully solved one. Gunther Stoll, 34-year-old German food inspector, fairly normal guy. Started getting paranoid, was convinced that he was being watched and followed by someone. His wife was concerned, but certain that he is wrong. One day while chilling with his wife he suddenly stood up, exclaimed that he understands it all now, wrote a random string of letters that nobody has been able to decipher on a piece of paper and left home without explanation. He apparently went to a bar, but behaved strangely, passed out and quickly left without drinking anything. Then he drove to his childhood town, talked to his former neighbor about being sure that something awful is going to happen to him soon and left. 2 hours later his car was spotted on the side of the road by some truck drivers and they called the police. Stoll was found inside, naked and heavily injured, and died soon after. He claimed there were 4 other people with him in the car who were strangers. The truck drivers also reported seeing another person near the car who escaped when they got near. The guy was never found. According to police analysis, Gunther must have been sitting in the back of the car and someone else was driving.
Steve Kabotsky was a college student in 1978, went skiing for the day and disappeared. What's really unique/weird is when they followed his footprints on the frozen lake they just stopped/ended. He didn't fall through the ice and remained missing for 15 months. He returned with lost memory, a bag with maps and wearing weird clothes. He didn't remember and wouldn't talk about his ordeal. Became a doctor. Nobody knows what happened. He refused medical/mental help. Continued with school. Before he went missing, Steven said he was going to go skiing. He was reported missing by his worried family a day after he was due to return from the trip. After he went missing, search teams scouted the area he was known to have headed to. They found his skis and his poles on the beach of the Lake Michigan and footprints on the ice leading up to the lake. Whilst searching for him, the rescue crew flew over the area, and it was reported that his footprints appeared to stop at the edge of the ice. The ice was unbroken, and a search of the area revealed no clue as to what had happened to Steven. Later that day they found his backpack in the same general area as his skis. No other evidence or sign of Steven could be found. It appeared he had just vanished into thin air. May 5, 1979, 15 months later, Steven walked up to his father's door, rang the bell and was surprised to discover he had been missing for so long. Steven said to his father that he didn't remember much. Steven had woken in Pittsfield, 40 miles from his father's house, lying in a meadow wearing clothes that weren't his. He had a small satchel beside him with maps that weren't his. Where he woke up was 700 miles from Lake Michigan. Reporters asked him repeatedly if he would talk to someone. He said he didn't need to, because he didn't have any psychological problems and nothing to say about the time he was missing. After 1983, Steven got a master's in linguistics and a PhD in clinical psychology.
John P. Wheeler, Unexplained Death, 2010. Former Pentagon official and presidential aide to Reagan and both Bushes, was working as a consultant for MITRE, military think tank. Was seen on CCTV at a parking garage with no shoes, repeatedly looking over his shoulder and out the door. He spoke to the parking lot attendant about looking for his car and told her his briefcase was stolen. The attendant later said he did not appear intoxicated. His body was found the next day as it was being dumped into a Wilmington, Delaware landfill. Search warrants on his home, cell, computer were all sealed by the AG of Delaware at the time, Bo Biden.
Sarah Jo, 1979 Hawaii. 5 good friends go out on a fishing trip on the boat called Sarah Jo. They don't return. Massive search conducted, thousands of square miles, not a trace of them. Search eventually called off, assumed the ocean claimed them. Decade later, 2,200 miles away on a tiny sand island, biologist accidentally discovers the Sarah Jo. And a grave of one of the men. Grave has a stack of blank papers with tinfoil in between. No trace of any of the other men. Leading theory is that illegal Chinese fishermen accidentally discovered the remains of at least one of the men on the tiny island, buried them to the best of their abilities, and then left quietly. Still, 2,200 miles is a long way for a boat with a corpse to go.
Valentic disappearance. Hobbyist pilot with limited experience flies around in his Cessna plane. Radios in that an aircraft is following him. He can't recognize it. He says it is toying with him. Last transmission before radio cuts out. It's not an aircraft. Metallic scraping noises and then silence. Never seen again.
Ben Smart and Olivia Hope went missing after a New Year's party in NZ 1998. Party is at a sheltered place by the sea. Man working there dropped them off on a random boat with a random dude for the night. Them and the boat gone the next morning. Forever. A dude got charged for it. And there is evidence against him, but it's pretty debunkable. As well as the police wanted that dude on other charges. That dude's boat did not match the described boat by the one witness. The described boat was seen by a local leaving the Sound and heading out to sea, with a young couple on board and a man staring at the dude who saw them. Boats never seen again. They're never seen again.
The Malaysian plane.
Guy and his girlfriend go hiking in Washington. Don't return. Family report them missing. Later, Guy is found dead, via gunshot to the head, in a sleeping bag. Month later, girlfriend's skull is found in a street. Her body is discovered nearby. She had a tube sock tied around her neck. A month later, a 2-year-old girl turns up at a grocery store, alone. She is taken to police. Her grandmother sees her on TV and calls her. Police ask little girl where her parents are. She says mommy is in the trees. Girl's mom's body is found half buried in snow in a forest. The dad's truck is found nearby. Dad is nowhere to be found. 25 years pass. Dad's skull is found within 1 mile of where the mom's body was found. Still unclear if he was a victim of the murders. A man identifying himself as Dan Cooper boarded a plane bound for Seattle in 1971. Demanded $200,000 in cash. Then parachuted out into a thunderstorm. He was never identified, and only a small amount of the money he stole was ever found. I should point out that it was due to a mistake on the part of the media reporting this story that the criminal became known as D.B. Cooper. The criminal never referred to himself by that name. After partying with his friends in 2008, 19-year-old Brandon Swanson crashed his car in a rural area of Minnesota. While talking with his parents on the phone, he suddenly shouted, "Oh shit," and was never seen or heard from again. In July of 2014, Lars Mittank, a German man on vacation in Bulgaria, began acting strangely, and sending paranoid text messages to his mother. Security camera footage at Varna airport showed him running outside, where he was seen hopping over a fence and running into a wooded area. He has not been seen since. In 2004, Maura Murray withdrew about $300 from an ATM, then later crashed her car. She told a passerby that she did not need help, and that she had already called AAA. She did not. When the police arrived at the scene, she was gone, and was never seen again. Genghis Khan ruled what was once the largest empire in history. Before he died, he requested that he be buried in an unmarked grave. Several legends exist regarding his burial. Some say that several thousands of slaves and guards carried his casket to his final resting place, then were killed or committed suicide in order to hide the location. Others believe that a river was diverted over the ground where he was buried. Either way, almost 800 years later, the location of the tomb of Genghis Khan remains a mystery.